Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock on a Monday, which means it's time for a 5x5. Now, this is where I take 5 subjects related to magic. I spend 5 minutes talking about each subject, and then I move on to the next subject. It's always quick, it's always snappy, and never know what you're going to get. Now, the 5x5s are rapidly becoming some of the most popular videos on this channel, so I want to thank you for that from the bottom of my heart. And today, I want to talk to you about a very particular, very important subject. We've been doing a lot of business advice on the 5x5s recently, but I want to talk about the magic community today. I want to talk about 5 lessons the magic community needs to learn. Now, look, I want to have a real conversation today, not about tricks, not about techniques, but about us, the magic community. I've been part of this world for decades. I've seen the highs, I've seen so much creativity, so much passion, so much friendship, and I've seen the lows, the drama, the jealousy, the division. But I still believe magic is one of the most beautiful art forms on the planet. It's full of brilliant people. Like any community, I feel that we've got lessons that we need to learn. So I need to talk about today 5 lessons that the magic community needs to learn. We can all take these to heart as creators, performers, as fans, as social performers, as hobbyists, as professionals, as amateurs. We can make magic better from everybody. And here's the thing, I have made so many mistakes in this industry. It is completely and totally untrue. I have made mistakes. When I first started this channel, I spent probably a year and a half making rant videos that were really just there to, sensationalize stuff that really wasn't that important. And these days I don't really do that. These days I don't do that at all. I try to make this channel a force for good. Now, that's not going to mean that I'm not going to call stuff out where I think it needs to be called out. It doesn't mean that I'm going to sit on my hands, rest on my laurels, and not talk about stuff. I think it's really important we talk about issues within the magic community. Even if it's only my opinion, we're going to do that. Mr. Masika, I'm talking to you. However, I think that as a community, we can do better. And I know that because I've tried to do better over these years. And look, I always make mistakes. I constantly make mistakes. I found myself typing something on Facebook the other day and then just deleting it because I'm like, what's the point? What's the point in arguing about this stuff? I've been through so many online feuds and so many online fads and so many, I've pretty much seen it all over the last 30 years. And I think I've boiled it down to 5 lessons. So you might agree with me, you might disagree with me. This is only my opinion, but let's go for it. Okay, I've made notes because I think this is a very important subject. So I've made a couple of notes. The first lesson, kind of the most important one, is we need to stop eating our own. The magic community has a habit of tearing down its own members. Someone releases something new, performs it on TV, wins an award, and within a week people are online saying it's derivative, it's rubbish, they don't deserve it. Disagree with me? Fine. When Harry Moulding won Britain's Got Talent, the amount of magicians I saw posting on their own social media about Harry Moulding is, terrible, and all he did was a force. I did videos about it. The way that the magic community, a small percentage of it, but the way the magic community treated Harry when he won Britain's Got Talent, when he did something that every other magician in the world wished they did, but they didn't have the balls to do, when he did something that only one other person in the entire history of magic in the UK has done. When he did that, every single magician should have been shouting from the rooftops, swinging from the rafters, and calling out his name, because him winning Britain's Got Talent will lead to everyone else getting more bookings. It means there's a magician on the Royal Variety Show. This stuff is important. This stuff is great. When Dynamo was in when Dynamo was doing his first series of specials, magicians were going online constantly calling him out, talking about how, he just uses stooges and he's not anything special. I've seen it happen over and over again. I've seen magicians posting on their own social media after watching Penn and Teller in London talking about how terrible Penn and Teller is. Like any single individual person who's dissing Penn and Teller could even come close to doing what they've achieved in the last 40 or 50 years. Heck, we do it with creators constantly. Somebody will bring out a trick. I'm going to use myself as an example because, I know my own personal subject matter. It doesn't matter how much good stuff you do. If somebody perceives something that comes out that's bad, you will get ripped apart from it. Let's give you an example. Last December, I did the Penguin Holiday Special. I went over to Columbus Didn't get paid for it, went and did it for free, cancelled a bunch of gigs to go out and do the Penguin Holiday Special, gave away some of my best magic for free. It got 5-star reviews. Penguin didn't charge for it. I didn't make a penny from it. All the magic community was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Oh, that's the best thing ever. Oh, thank you, Craig. That's wonderful. Then in January, I bring out Big Blind through Murphy's. Everybody loved it. Everyone talked about how amazing it is. It's in my everyday carry. It's such a great trick. Thank you. Then at Blackpool, I arranged a free event for magicians to come along before Blackpool. I got Eric Tate performing and lecturing there. I got a bunch of other people performing and lecturing there. Everyone talked about how amazing it was. And you know what? I then bring out the atomic deck. And despite the fact that I use it in my show and it's the closer in my show, and I still think it's probably in the top 3 things of everything that I've ever created, and I'm so proud of it, the small minority of the magic community made me feel so bad about myself that I literally came close to quitting magic. I shut this YouTube channel down for like 3 weeks because I just couldn't handle it. I was in such a mess. I was getting videos made about me. I was having people like Sean Devine, who hadn't even learnt the trick, ripping up the atomic deck on camera before even looking at the tutorial. I had other reviewers saying how terrible it was. I had people saying I was the biggest fraud in magic. I had people saying I was a con artist because I brought out a trick that's now being performed on TV over a dozen times and is genuinely the finale of my show. Whenever I do a show, I use that as the finale of my show. And yet I'm being ripped apart to the point that I wanted to leave this community after going and traveling to Columbus for free to put an event, and that's what I mean. That's the problem. You can do as much good in this community as you want to, and then if people perceive that you've done something that they don't like, which is their opinion, you're going to get torn to shreds. Doesn't matter how much good you do, doesn't matter how many hours of time and effort I spend putting into this YouTube channel, it makes no difference. You're going to get absolutely, completely, and totally ripped apart. I'm not even going to start on what magicians publicly say on Ryland's own Facebook. It makes me sick. I don't know why he bothers. If I was Ryland, honestly, at this point, I would quit magic. I really would, because he sees the comments. He's 13 next week. It drives me insane when I see people going, oh, Craig writes Ryland's. He's 13 years old. He's got his own life. I don't do things for him. He does it himself. He's his own little person now. He sees the comments that go on social media. And you know what? I don't understand how it doesn't affect him, but it doesn't. But the shit that magicians say about Ryland on his Facebook account, I have to delete stuff that I hope he won't see, where he's being told to die and magic would be better if he was dead. There's this one guy that went on the other week when he put a video of himself performing at the Tower Ballroom, and a magician who's really well known, and I'm not going to name his name, they went on and went, well, you're a porky little fat git, aren't you? On his public social media. It's disgusting. He's a 13-year-old kid going out and trying to do the best he can do and working hard every single day. And I see people tearing him down. And I see people doing it about Thea now. And I question whether I should even be bringing her into this industry. It's terrible. I've got a note here. I've seen young magicians post a trick online. The first 10 comments are people nitpicking the grip, the angle, the flash. There's no encouragement, just criticism. And that isn't in a private Facebook group. That where they're asking for advice. That's on their personal Facebook or their personal Instagram or their personal TikTok. It's a wonder why so many talented people quit this industry. We have to flip the script. When someone succeeds, we have to say, well done. When someone releases a product, don't assume it's bad motives. Assume it's passion. If you genuinely have feedback, give it privately and kindly. There's somebody that's been going online recently on a few videos of mine, calling me out about something he thinks I've done incorrectly. He could have contacted me about this. He has my number. He's chosen not to do so. That is an example of what I'm talking about. The magic community should be a place where creativity thrives, not where it gets crushed. Okay, lesson number 2. Originality doesn't mean isolation. There's this weird belief in magic that if you're influenced by anyone, you're not original. And that's nonsense. Every art form builds on what came before it. Music, film, painting, they all evolved through influence, and magic's no different. Di Vernon studied Erdnase. Copperfield was probably inspired by Robert Houdin. Even modern creators borrow principles from Tarbell, Marlowe, Anneman. That's not theft, that's evolution. The problem is, some magicians get so obsessed with being original that they isolate themselves, they won't collaborate, they won't share ideas, and they end up reinventing old wheels worse than before. Here's the thing, we should collaborate, but most importantly, you have to understand the difference between innovation and building on something that's come before. I remember and again, I'm using me as an example because I know exactly what I'm talking about with this situation because it's happened to me. I remember when I brought out Keymaster way back in the day, many years ago. People were like, well, hang on a minute, it's Holy Moly with a key. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. It's actually very different because there's the stem of the key, and the hole goes onto the stem of the key, which can't be done with Holy Moly, and it gives you an extra phase, and it's a key, it's not a washer, it makes more sense, and blah, 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 blah. People did it recently with Credit Swipe. I brought out Credit Swipe, and people were like, hang on a minute, it's just Daryl's Presto Printo, but with credit cards. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. First of all, Presto Printo is not the only printing routine. Just check with Dominic Duivier. There's a ton of them. But second of all, it's always been on playing cards. It makes more sense to do it on a credit card because then you can actually use a hook of having, a credit card fraud. And it's more impossible because it's not a playing card and it makes it not a card trick. It makes it something else. And then when Credit Swipe came out, people were like, well, you've just ripped off Daryl. No, I haven't. I've been inspired by Daryl to create this. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, I also went and got permission from Mervis, who owns the whole of Daryl's estate, to release this with a rival company. Thank you very much. It happened recently with Keycutter. Keycutter came out by Ryland Petty, and I had a dozen people message me calling me a rip-off artist because I ripped off Keyvolution by Mark Leverage, despite the fact they hadn't read the ad copy, despite the fact that they hadn't seen the trailer. They just saw it and they assumed I'd ripped something off because in this industry, a lot of the time it's shoot first and ask questions later. It doesn't matter that I reached out to Mark Leverage. It doesn't matter that I paid him literally thousands of pounds personally, not Penguin, me, to get the rights to actually bring this out and make it part of the Keymaster range so his legacy lives on forever. No, none of that matters. None of that matters. Craig has ripped off somebody else. And it's not just me. I see people calling out creators all of the time. It really needs to stop. I've got notes here. We need to normalize collaboration. Let's credit our influences openly and let's stop treating inspiration as a crime. Being original doesn't mean being alone. It means adding your voice to the conversation. Okay, lesson number 3. We've got to value performers, not just products. Right now, the magic industry is obsessed with products. Every week, there's a new deck, a new gimmick, a new download. And I know I'm responsible for a lot of it. And that's fine. I love new releases. I love magic. If I wasn't doing this professionally, if I didn't make money from magic, it would be my hobby. I have been obsessed with magic since I was 18 years old. And I will be obsessed with magic until the day that I draw my last breath. I love it, I eat it, I sleep it, and I drink it. But somewhere along the way, we started treating performers like they matter less than inventors. Let me just get to my next page so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Here we go. You post a live performance that kills. This is the point I wanted to make here. You post a live performance that kills, it gets a few likes. You release a flashy new gimmick, you're the rock star for the week, and that's backwards as far as I'm concerned. Magic isn't about what's in the shop. It's about what happens between the performer and the audience. I've seen working pros who do 200 shows a year earn standing ovations, but no one in the community knows their name. Meanwhile, someone releases a trick that no one's ever heard of before, and they're the superstar for the week. And I understand why, I get why this is the case. As an industry, we put creators on pedestals. I speak to magicians that have been in this industry for literally a month and they start talking to me about releasing their own trick. They've not studied anything. They have no knowledge of magic, but they just come in and they just assume that they can create something. And that's great in one respect because I love creativity and I love encouraging people to create. But I think sometimes we need to not rush into it. We need to take a step back and maybe learn to perform, learn the principles of magic first, just, I think it's really important that as an industry, we celebrate performers as well as creators. I think that, it's why I do live performances with every single trick I release. It's because I want people to understand that I'm not a creator at heart. At heart, I'm a performer. That's where I make my money from. That's where I make my living from. I'm sitting in an office that was literally built on the blood, sweat, and tears of me being a performer, not a creator. I moved into this office in 2017. I have been here for 8 years. I moved into this office in 2016, actually. I moved into this office in 2016 and it's a big building. It's a big building, and I moved in here while I was no longer in the magic community, based off the back of me being a performer. Performing for me is absolutely everything. It's why you're always going to see live performances on my products. Let's celebrate live performers. Let's bring the conversation back about showmanship, structure, timing, audience connection. When you see a trailer come out and there's a performance and a live performance, people will just go, oh yeah, I see the move. Or, yeah, I saw the ditch in the pocket. You're damned if you can, you're damned if you can't. If you don't put a live performance on there, people will be like, oh, there's something to hide, it's not a live performance. But the second you put a live performance on, people don't say, wow, look at the reaction that got. Or, oh my gosh, that's a really clever line that you used there. I like that. Oh, that prop. No, a lot of the time, it's about, oh, I saw that move, that wouldn't work in the real world. Well, of course it will. The amount of time that I've seen people, the atomic deck is a perfect example. The amount of people that said to me, this won't work in the real world, despite me having literally about 40 or 50 live performance videos of me doing it in pubs, in restaurants, walk around, table hopping, outside, street magic, parlor shows, weddings, corporates, stand-up shows, illusion shows. I literally included footage of me doing it everywhere. The one thing that people said over and over again is, this isn't practical. Are you crazy? Are you absolutely kidding me? That's the problem. People don't look at the performance these days, and they really should. Buy tricks, sure, but remember, a gimmick doesn't make a magician. Performance does. Okay, lesson number 4, and I think this is a really important one. Respect shouldn't depend on fame. In magic, let's be honest, there's a hierarchy. Who's got followers, who's on TV, who's lecturing at conventions, but fame doesn't equal respectability. Sometimes the most ethically talented magicians you'll ever meet are quietly performing every weekend, not chasing clout. One of the best magicians that I've ever seen, one of the most engaging, one of the most charismatic, one of the most wonderful magicians that I've ever seen is a guy called Owen Strickland. If you don't live in the Midlands, there's a very good chance you've probably never heard of him. Do you know why? He's not releasing the latest trick. He's not on TV. He's not famous. He hasn't got millions of followers on Facebook or Instagram. But you know what? He's one of the busiest working magicians in the UK, and he's going out there and he's crushing it every single day. He is, without a shadow of a doubt, incredible. And you know what? If I was in a room with 7 or 8 big name magicians and he was there, I would probably rather sit at a table with him than anyone else, to pick his brain, both from a business point of view, but a performance point of view, and everything in between. But you know what? Sometimes, quite a lot of the time, this industry treats unknown magicians like their voices don't even matter. And I've seen it. I've been in a room and I've watched this happen at the Magic Circle, where somebody has come in, there's 2 groups of people, and I've sat at a table and I'm watching, there's 2 groups of people, or there's 1 group of people, and somebody will go up, and one's famous and one's somebody no one's ever heard of before, and they will completely blank that person they've never heard of. They'll completely blank them like they don't even fucking exist. And it's terrible, right? So, I've seen creators get dismissed simply because they're not names. I saw it happen with Chris James. Now, Chris James has a name now, thanks to all the incredible stuff that he's doing, but for a long time didn't have a name and people dismissed him. 6 months later, their idea turns up in somebody else's release and suddenly praised when a famous face is attached. Here's the fix. Respect people for their work, not for their reach. If someone's ideas are solid, listen. If they perform well, acknowledge it. If they treat each other kindly, support them. Magic should be a mediocrity of effort and creativity, not ego. When we start giving credit when it's due, regardless of status, the art will grow healthier and fairer. Okay, the final lesson, number 5, that we have to learn as magicians. Remember why we fell in love with magic in the first place. At some point, a lot of magicians lose touch with why they started. They get caught up in the online debates, product wars, exposure scandals, copyright drama, and forget that it all started with wonder. That feeling of something impossible for the first time. Magic isn't supposed to be stressful, it's supposed to be joyful. I've seen professional magicians, I've worked at events with professional magicians, and they are literally going through the motions. They don't want to be there. They couldn't care less about being there. They're there to pick up a paycheck because that's the best way for them to make money. I worked with somebody like that, and I would say it to his face. Russell Leeds was my business partner. Now, Russell has gone on to be more successful than I will ever dream to be. He's a multi-millionaire. But you know what? We were given a decision at some point, and he chose to go somewhere else where there was an opportunity to make more money. And that's fine. That's all well and good. And I respect him for that. And he's on his own journey, and that's fine. I could never do that. I could never leave magic. Even if there was an opportunity where I'd make 10 times more money immediately, I would never be able to leave magic because I love it. I couldn't go through the motions. For me, it's not a paycheck. It's more than that. But I've seen those professional magicians that go through the motions. I've seen amateurs who a year ago were posting constantly about how much they love magic, and they were on Facebook constantly and talking about how much magic's amazing, and they've been beaten down. Maybe people have slagged off the videos they've put online. Maybe they're just going through a rut and they don't want to practice anymore. But I've seen them literally walk away from magic or ask the question, I don't love it anymore. I'm finding it difficult to even rehearse. I'm finding it difficult to learn something new. I'm just buying stuff and putting it in a drawer without even doing anything with it. I feel like I'm in a rut. I've seen magicians who are bitter and burnt out rediscover their sparks by just performing for kids or filming a trick for social media. Something simple, something pure, and something fun. And that is the solution. We need to remember that magic is fun. It's meant to be fun. If you're in a situation where you're just falling out of love with magic, well, maybe take a step back. Maybe go away from it for a month. If you leave magic, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that, but maybe you'll come back reinvigorated. Maybe you'll come back stronger. Maybe you need to go out and perform. Maybe you need to just take all of that crap and put it to one side and pick a trick that you love and go and perform it to as many people as possible. And remember why you fell in love with magic in the first place. Get back to your roots. Do a show just because it makes people happy. Perform something old that you haven't done in a long time just because you love it. Share a trick without worrying about likes or validation or why that trick, how many comments you're going to get about the trick, because at the heart of it all, magic is about giving people a moment they will never ever forget, and that's bigger than any argument and any release. If you've been one of the magicians that have asked me the questions over and over again, I'm falling out of love with magic, what should I do? Well, one, it's okay to fall out of love with magic. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But two, if you want to reconnect, go back to your roots. Remember why you fell in love with this art form in the first place. Go watch a performance of somebody doing magic that makes you happy. Go out and perform. I do that from time to time. I'll just go out and perform, and it's so important to remember why you do this, because at the end of the day, I see so many people that work 9-to-5 jobs and they absolutely hate their life. They turn up at work, they hate every second of it, and they leave, and their life is in a rut, right? We have a chance to impact people's lives in a positive way. And I know that sounds ridiculously over the top, but we do. We do. It's magic is a calling. If you want to do it, but remember why you fell in love with it in the first place. So there you go, 5 lessons the magic community needs to learn. Let's recap. Stop eating our own. Originality doesn't mean isolation. Value performers, not just products. Respect shouldn't depend on fame. And remember why we fell in love with magic in the first place. If we start living those 5 lessons, even just a little bit, we can make this art form stronger, we can make it kinder, we can make it more inspiring than ever before. And that's all I've got to say about that. Other than, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me? Do you think there's some points that I've missed? Let me know down below. If you want to see more videos like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And if you do want some more magic, some new magic, consider joining the Netrix. It's my online streaming platform for magicians. It's the netrix.com. You can get access immediately. Outside of that, thank you so much for watching. My name's Craig, and this is Magic TV.